Hello, welcome to our first weekend of the term where we're going to do some generative writing. I'm not sure if I said this to the people in the email, but ideally when we do this, if you can write by hand, there is science behind the interaction between your two hemispheres of your brain when you're using your hand. So if you can do this writing when we generate today by hand, because it should engage more places that you aren't expecting to engage, but typing's fine too. It's just a little piece of advice. So we have a 529 person here and a couple of 532 people here. So first I'll talk briefly about 529. And we're focusing on the elements of plot and fiction. And then looking at the way that all the way through the course, we're going to be looking at the way how an element can influence other elements. So that's something we're going to be doing all the way through. And so when we're writing today, some things to keep in mind when we talk to people about what they wrote, we can think about if they managed a narrative arc. It's only 6 minutes, so maybe they won't. The narrative point of view, we can think about character development, setting, which is description, but also in 529, they separate out sensory detail, which is, these two things are basically what 532 is all about. So those are important for us to pay attention to. And then rhetorical devices, which everybody here who knows me already knows that figurative language is my favorite of those, but it could be other things like foreshadowing or irony or, all the things that you can find in the list that they give you in 529. But I love metaphor and simile the best because I think they really translate your imaginative world to your readers. In 532, our assignment this week is to craft a narrative piece that relies on the emergence of nostalgia through descriptive, and this writing is bad, by the way, by the course director, the people who made the course, because there's a list of propositions in a row here, so don't write like this, but through descriptive inclusion of at least 2 of the 5 senses in order to propel a character through his or her surroundings, which could also be there in today's pronouns. So you're going to be using at least 2 of the 5 senses to propel a character, but keep in mind when we read Ron Rosell this week, chapter 5, next week, don't overdo any of the senses. Yes, choose 2, but they shouldn't exist just to have senses in there. They should do more than just say, hey, I smell something. That smell should be meaningful to either like characterization or the plot, or that setting couldn't be the same if it didn't have baking bread in it. Whatever you're doing needs to be important to the story, even if, as Rosell says, it just pulls your reader into the setting, which is important. And I briefly just want to say that, I was digging through the rubric because it is my first time teaching this course, though I've been, teaching creative writing. It's new since 2017. So this course look at the rubric and you're going to look at concept, main elements, style, and mechanics. And in this, you're going to have like vivid description to invoke a particular setting. There's bold on the word original plot or narrative arc, so that's important. The main elements, you actually get graded on whether or not you're following the directions for the assignment, which is unique to me in SNHU, but very important. And then style is very much about, strong active language that doesn't have a string of prepositions in a row. They could follow their own advice. The poetic, if you're doing poetry, your breaks or your form, if it's applicable, using industry standards. So scene headings, if you're screenwriting, punctuating things like dialogue correctly. And then it's supposed to follow the typical publishable genre conventions. And then no matter what, the when and where of the intended setting in the creative work must be understandable to the audience. So those are the kinds of things that you're being, graded on. And then the mechanics, simple things like grammar, spelling, MLA format, it's not listed there, but that's one of the things that I keep in mind for you. So in both of my classes, you'll find attached to my announcements this sample formatting paper that I've created you literally could open that and type over the top of it if you want to get your formatting correct. I mean, it's right there for you. But if you want to do it independently, you can go to the end of that sample paper and I show you how to get rid of those pesky extra spaces that Microsoft Word has automatically put into all documents that you're writing. So please read the contents of that paper because it really helps you get your MLA formatting correct, like having your information block and running header and page number, the spacing and indenting your paragraphs and all those things. And those are necessary all the way through SNHU. So that's how every one of your papers should look that you turn into SNHU, whether it's a journal, whether it's your creative writing, any type of writing should look like that sample paper. Any questions?
An unrelated MLA question.
Sure.
When we post, like in the discussions or anything like that, I seem to be the only one hitting the tab space to the beginning of the discussions. And even on things like greetings and salutations, like you're supposed to indent those lines as well, right?
No, like your information block shouldn't be indented. If you're saying, you know, hi, Angela, I loved your thing. The hi, Angela should be all the way to the left.
Okay,
And
but if
honestly, in discussion boards, because it's so difficult to format them, you're not going to get, I'd be surprised if any instructor would grade you down on your formatting and the discussion boards.
And in a regular document, if I'm sending it letter style, does
the
dear
salutation
John,
is all the way to the left. Yep.
it is, so you don't indent the dear John and the sincerely Elisa.
Yeah, never.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So let's get to the fun part. So I have come up with 2 flash pieces that I wanted us to consider that would help us get kind of inspired for our writing today. What we'll do is we're going to go through the first flash. This one I'll read aloud, and then I'll ask if somebody wants to read the next one aloud, just to break the ice for this one. And then we're going to read this, we're going to talk about it just a little bit, and then I'll do our generative writing prompt. In that prompt, you're going to have 6 minutes to write. I want to say now that, you know, as we move into that prompt, if you don't know what to write, just start writing that boring same phrase over and over again. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to, by the 3rd time, your brain's going to be like, fine, I'll give you something. You know? So try that technique. I've had a couple people get grumpy and say that one doesn't work, but I don't believe them. I haven't really known anybody where that doesn't work. It's just frustrating when you have writer's block, when you're put on the spot to write. So you're going to be put on the spot shortly. Get ready. And then you also don't have to share what you wrote, but we typically do. I mean, most people do, unless you really didn't get something, because we're such a friendly space. You know, there isn't any reason not to. We're just excited if any words end up on the page, which is the other thing I need to remember. If you don't follow the prompt, that's fine. All this is really about is getting you to generate some writing. And if the prompt helps you, perfect. If the prompt is not working for you, but you have something to write that. I mean, this is just about getting words somewhere. Okay, so do you have your documents open so you can look at them? The ones I sent you?
Yes.
The first flash I have for you is by Sarah Freligh. She is amazing. She actually has flash classes that are incredibly affordable. They're like $110, which is unheard of out in the creative writing world. So I regularly take classes from her. And in fact, that publication that went up yesterday that was from the Ekphrastic Review happened in one of her flash classes that I took. I mean, obviously I edited it after the class, but most of it happened in that class, and the class had some editing in it. So, I mean, it was almost ready when I left the class. She's amazing. My favorite poem is by her. It's called Wondrous, and I recommend it if you haven't read it. So I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in all the elements of fiction, but especially sensory detail. And this is called Away. We spent our last $3 on a tall boy that we passed back and forth through most of Iowa. 24 hours we'd been driving away from the sick and the sirens and the smell of the dead in the streets. Truckers honked around us, past us. We waved to the cute ones, hiked our skirts higher on our pale thighs. We were down to warm suds when the needle scraped E and we pulled into a mom and pop station at the next exit. We sat on the curb out front and discussed what we were willing to do for a gallon or two. Steal, sell ourselves, and laughed until our pants were damp. The owner called us sweetheart and gave us coffee and a couple of stale donuts before he shut off the lights and headed home. I'd never seen so many stars. Sitting there like that, I was sure I could feel the earth turn, but you said no. It was probably the grumble of the trucks on the interstate. Still, it was nice to think we were moving forward, away from ourselves, even while we were stuck. Isn't it amazing what somebody can do in so few words? In this one, I think this is the first time I've read it aloud. And the first thing that hit me reading it aloud is how many sibilance pieces she has in here with the S sound. And I knew it with the sick and the sirens and the smell of the dead, but it kept going, ones I hadn't noticed by reading it in my head. So I just want to remind everybody that reading out loud is essential to your writing. You read your own writing out loud, other people's writing out loud. It helps highlight things you may not have noticed, like that thing I just noticed. What else is like something that just pops in your brain that we read in here?
That they managed to interpose themselves, even though it was just a description of the journey. So I feel like I know the two of them.
Right, we know exactly what type of person they are, right? Yeah, what else?
I really like all the sensory detail, like some parts that were like laughing till our pants were damp, or like the stale donuts, because you can like put yourself exactly in there.
Yeah, and one thing I would comment on and that you pointed out about the stale donuts, that's an amazing way to put the sensory detail of taste in there without saying it tasted like, right? There's another sensory detail of taste in here that isn't direct. Can you guys pick it out? It's before the stale donuts.
The warm suds.
Yep, because we know if anybody has ever drank warm beer, then we know what that tastes like, right?
I was a little lost, and I think it was because of not living in the same area as she does, maybe. The first sentence, when it said tall boy, I was thinking of a boy that's tall. So I don't know what a tall boy is.
It's a gigantic can of beer.
Oh, okay.
I Googled it and it said a piece of furniture. So I just
Seriously.
thought I was going to completely ignore that part. Like they were going somewhere in a car with a piece of furniture.
That's funny. Sarah, I believe, is from Michigan, or Minnesota, because she's really proud of her state right now. So maybe Minnesota. I just saw that on Facebook the other day, so like yesterday. Yeah, so a tall boy is a huge can of beer, and that's why the warm suds are beer. Yeah. So what is the setting? What do we know about the setting from the first, say, 2 sentences?
That they're driving from cross country.
Yep. Where are they driving cross country?
Well, I'm thinking they're in the Midwest because of the tall boy reference. I'm assuming that's where that is. Away from the sick, sirens, and smell of the dead. The sick and sirens, I would say, would be a city, but I don't know about the smell of the dead.
Yeah. So you're right about the Midwest because it's back and forth through most of Iowa. So they're driving around in Iowa, right? And they're not going anywhere because they're back and forth, right?
Well,
So
to drive through Iowa is like 6-ish hours one way if you're going up and down. If
Right.
they've been traveling 24 hours,
Oh, yeah, because they're going back and forth.
Yeah, I
Right?
just, when I drove my daughter doing this school tour, we drove from Chicago down to Purdue. And that was 4 hours-ish. And that's what I felt about this. It was like this long, boring, straight drive with nothing to stop, nowhere to go, nothing between point A and point B.
But 24 hours we've been driving. And in the previous sentence, they passed the tall boy back and forth through most of Iowa. So 24 hours we've been driving, they're in Iowa. They're either like circling around in Iowa, or where could you be 24 hours away from Iowa? Where could you be? If you're on the far end of Iowa and it's 6 hours to get there, where could you have come from?
Let's open Google Maps.
doesn't take 24 hours, but like if we're talking about they're driving away from a city. So big cities around Iowa would be like Minneapolis
Okay, but let's pick a city that's at least 18 hours away.
is what?
That's 18 hours away from one edge of Iowa.
That would have to be coast.
Yeah,
New
I mean,
York.
so we don't really know. What we do know is that they've been passing this tall boy back and forth through most of Iowa. That could be a hint that they're driving back and forth, or if it's 24 hours we've been driving away, then maybe they were 24 hours away from where they are now, which is somewhere in the edge of Iowa, right? Yeah, so the idea is they have come from somewhere, and I want to get to what Tammy said, away from the sick and the sirens and the smell of the dead in the streets. What does that imply? Like, what this is a huge setting part of this.
When you first read it aloud, before we got to the rest of it, I thought, well, is this an apocalyptic thing? You know, are there zombies in the street? What's going on?
I think we're supposed to ask that question. What do you all think?
Well, I think when I saw that sentence, the smell of dead in the streets, to me, automatically, I started thinking no lights, no vegetation whatsoever, just dirt. I'm originally from Lubbock, Texas, where it's just plain dirt. And that's what I thought of.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
Well,
so
Also, how much does it matter where they started from?
it doesn't matter that much. What matters is that it's a city. You're right, Sarah. What also matters is sick, sirens, smell of dead. I agree with Tammy that it really could be an apocalypse. And you know what? I should have written down, and now I don't remember when she wrote this. What if she wrote this in 2021? What would we be thinking of?
Could have been COVID,
Right, a
You know,
pandemic
deaths.
or something.
deaths from COVID, but it's like two pieces in one, because those first couple of sentences are like, we're trying to escape, there's something terrible happening. And then you go into just two free will people like Tina and Louise going out, having fun. So it was kind of against each other.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's trying to get the readers to believe that they're escaping something really bad and trying to forget it by having fun.
Exactly, Angela, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, if we pulled in things that we know, and it's only one interpretation, this is just me playing around with what I'm seeing here. This doesn't have to be like a right reading, but definitely, New York City was putting refrigerator trucks on their streets and filling them full of dead people because they didn't have enough places to bury people. So at least in our recent history, and again, I wish I remembered when this was written. I'm sure if you guys Google, you can find it, but I think it was in, oh, it
Like
starts with-
2009, maybe.
Really?
I
That's so funny.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
That's-
but in our world, we know of times when there were dead in the streets. But if you drove to Iowa in the middle of at least our pandemic, you could end up in a world like this where truckers are honking at you, and because it's different than being in the city. So those dead in the street could be metaphorical, and Tammy and Angela are both hinting at that, or they could be literal. And the idea is you've got these two young people who just have to keep moving. And I think we recognize that in some version of, well, at least my teenage self, right? You know, that you had to change your world. And so it could be an apocalyptic world. It could be two people who are just running away from a life they didn't like. It could be Tina and Louise, you know, in oh, tell me the name of that movie. The one where they drive off the cliff. Thelma and Louise. It's not Tina,
That's
why.
right, Thelma,
Yeah.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. So there's so much happening here. We have implied setting, we have real setting, we have sensory detail in the donuts and the warm suds and the damp pants, and you know, and those are two of the hardest senses to get. The touch and the taste are some of the hardest senses to bring in seamlessly into our work, and yet she does it, right? And then I've never seen so many stars, which is definitely something somebody from a city experiences when they go out into the rest of the world. And then the one character seems to be, you know, pretty woo-woo. She's like, I was sure I could feel the earth turn, but you said no. So the other character seems to be a little bit grounded, right?
Or one's a bit creative and the other's a bit practical.
Yeah. So all this happened here. She did not write this in 6 minutes. Don't expect the same level of writing in your own writing, but I hope you can be inspired by the things that we saw here. So now this prompt, again, you don't have to follow the prompt, but what I'm trying to do is not only engage the people who are in 529 who have to come up with story ideas this next week, but also the people in 532 who have to deal in sensory detail. So the part one of our prompt is consider a walk you or your fictional character have taken many, many times. The walk from your apartment to work, for example, the short route from your desk job to the closet washroom, a hike you've taken over and over again, anything that you know back to front, and write the story in painstaking detail. One thing to keep in mind is you need to know why the person is taking the journey, and that's part of your narrative arc. So try to think about your character or you if you're writing nonfiction and why this is happening, but constrain this writing only to the physical details. And all I mean is to like the physical setting and the sensory details that are happening in it. So only include details that are accessible through the senses, not like the interior of that character's head or the interior of your head. And I mean, excruciating detail. This is the time to do it. Roselle in 532 recommends we don't overdo sensory detail. In this draft, do. This is all sensory detail. Do too much. You can always remove, but this is the time. Okay, are you all ready? And if you want, like, I will stop my picture and I'll mute me so that you don't hear me. But you can keep your picture if you want. Just muting is nice so that you don't make noises that distract other people. Okay, so on your marks, no. Get set, right. You have about a minute left. Okay, try to wrap up what you're doing. How did it go, everybody? I've got Suzanne's face and she nodded. Angela?
I started a couple of things and then had to stop and go, okay, wait, hold on.
No, your inner editor is not allowed. They are, I forgot to tell you that. They are not invited to this writing. And
I
think-
did it, but I didn't finish.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, you were in on my early versions of this, and 6 minutes is just not that long.
No.
And I think, Tammy, there's a chance you've seen this prompt before, but I don't think Sarah or Suzanne have seen it, have you?
I saw it in Birch Bark. We
Oh,
used,
really? I did this one in Birch Bark? Wow, that surprises me, but okay. Well, I had it here first. I must have been desperate with Birch Bark. I'm getting better at those. All right, well, I'm really eager to hear what people got if you're willing to share.
I don't mind breaking the ice.
Thank you, Sarah.
Tori grabbed her trail map that she hadn't needed for years out of her backpack that she clicked on and hung on her back. Slipping out of her high heels into her heavy hiking boots, she sheds another layer of her despised banking job. Approaching her favorite hiking trail marked what used to be red paint on the hiking guide. It had faded to barely an orange. Leaves turning colors of salmon and others dripping cedar, clear sticky goo, all sent their own hellos and goodbyes. Tori saw the stairs formed with shaved logs and filled with solid dirt as she strutted forward while ducking to avoid the silk hanging worms that hung right at head level. Maybe trying to hitch a ride on a non-experienced trailblazer. The rusty handled steps didn't even slow her down, but the burnt color of rust, like henna, left her hands or arms, left on her hands or arms from the railing. That doesn't even make sense. Rusty handled steps. I don't know. But that's all I've got.
Well, it's perfectly fine to have a sentence that doesn't make sense in 6-minute writing. So
But I did
everybody
love
with
that sentence. I love that sentence that didn't make sense, like the rust leaving a mark. It really, I loved it. So it might be screwy, but I mean, I totally love it.
Thanks.
It made
It's
sense.
supposed to
to
talk about
me.
the railing on the side, was rusted and left that orangish brown henna
Well,
look.
when you read it, that's what it reminded me of, rust coming down from a railing or a chair or an iron table, something like that. That's what I pictured.
Yeah, but when I was linking it to like your escapism, like she's escaping from her job and everything else, and I thought, you know, I'm of the generation where you couldn't really get a job, you know, like all of us actually, to be honest, you know, if you're covered with tattoos and everything, and just like, you know, henna tattoos were always okay because they wash off. So when you said she was escaping and then the rust became a tattoo, like henna, it was just like, that makes sense. She's like, this is her moment of freedom, that she's like got body art to symbolize the freedom from getting away from her job. So yeah, you got to keep that sentence now that we all like it.
Thanks.
What else? Anybody have anything else?
It did a lot of nostalgia for me because I was thinking of hikes that I used to go on when I was younger, and the stairs that were made out of logs, and the hiking trails that we had mapped out on a map, but all the ink had faded from the map, and I could really put myself back in time when I was doing that myself.
Yeah, and the salmon leaves, that color, it's, you know, it's not an orange leaf, it's not a fall leaf. It's a really unique way of saying what's happening with the leaf. And then the silkworms hitching a ride. I mean, right? And we always get them and we don't want them. And it was such a nice little detail because it reminded us of, like, she really wants to get away and there's pros and cons about it. And she's experiencing that. And I love the rust too. I never thought of rust as a henna tattoo. And yeah, I want to steal that from you. I won't, unless you say it. Okay, so wow, fantastic. Don't feel intimidated, anybody. Sarah's been doing this a long time.
I can go next.
Okay.
Okay, and just to make it clear, one thing, I live in Mercer Island, where we don't have mailboxes in the houses. So we're kind of rural. It's like you go up the street, there's like a collection of mailboxes.
And you like don't have any water right now either, right? Or did it come back?
We got it back. We got it
Good.
back. It came back 6 p.m. yesterday.
Nice.
Apparently the water line to the island was cut 65 hours before they notified anybody. And they only
wow.
notified us when the reservoir hit the like emergency levels.
Yeah.
So then they got it, they said we take a day to fix. It took 2 days, got it
Right.
back. On
Sarah or Elisa and I are in the same state. So I watched my news. Suzanne probably saw it too. And I was like, oh, Elisa, how nice for you.
it was, and they said it's going to take 2 more days to the reservoir to fill up.
Yeah.
Of course, then
Yeah.
it was pouring last night, and one of my friends is like, oh, the reservoir will fill up. And I'm like, do you not realize the reservoir, those, you know, things that come from sci-fi movies, the water doesn't come from the sky. Like our drinking water comes from a water plant. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
what'd you get, Elisa?
Okay, we get ready to leash up and go. It takes a minute for Lana to slow down and sit as she jumps in excitement when she hears her special word. We walk briskly up the driveway. I won't let her pause by the cherry trees or the peaches. She does a good sniff around the community mailboxes, but someone has already used the space and she wanders away. We make it another 20 feet to the stop sign where she gives her dribble just to prove she was there. Onwards we go, 1 more block straight, 1 block left, and we are golden. A mother has her toddler running around the patchy grass, and I turn to warn her that this is the community dog and geese favorite spot. I might read as I do my business, but this is for the dogs. They look at the water as they do theirs. Before I manage to say something, the toddler spies my angel and rushes towards her. But Lana is on a mission. She squats, she pees, readjusts 3 inches to the left, and leaves a present for me to pick up. The mother suddenly notices that the geese do not pick up after themselves and screams at the child. Lana rushes over to sniff the found goose poop. I yank her away as the mother does the same. We break away from the field of gold and walk back.
Mhm.
Field of what?
Gold.
Nice. I love that you made it about a dog.
I
That's
show you
great.
her picture. She's sleeping her 27 hours a day, so I can't.
What else do y'all remember from what Elisa wrote? What stood out?
I thought it was really funny, especially like the marking, like the stop sign just to let them know that she was there. And then like the juxtaposition between the dog and the child. Now like both of them are like your babies, you know, as well as like trying to protect from especially the geese in the geese poop. So I thought it was really funny, but like really good.
Thank you.
Do we get any kind of characterization of, oh my God, where'd you all go? Oh. My computer just like turned itself off and on. Maybe it's just my monitor. Okay. Characterization of the owner by the details we get when she's talking to us. Oh, you're not there. Dude,
Covered with poop.
are you there?
Okay. And it's all these.
Please tell me that you stayed here.
We all stayed.
Oh, good. Yeah, my power went out. Just like,
Oh.
you know, and then when it does that, I don't have any internet until it all comes back up. Because we're
And it automatically puts you back on recording, right?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on Starlink, and so when the power goes out, it's all gone. Everything. Because we have a house that has hardy planks, so it's a concrete house, and we get zero. I mean, we already have bad signal around, but we have zero signal inside the house. So sorry. Hello. Did you get my awesome question about how did it characterize the owner?
No, it's okay. We talked about the dog poops in Fruitland Landing instead.
That's awesome. No, I just was wondering if we would want to say a couple words about what we learned about the owner by the way she described what the dog was
She seemed to be very protective and loving. I mean, she was willing to stop when the dog wanted to do its thing, and she didn't want that child going into the field, and she didn't even want her own dog in the field after he did his business.
Yeah, definitely. So it's
Yeah.
just nice to see that when we do something that's so focused on sensory detail, we can still get characterization. The setting can be meaningful. You know, we know she's in an urban setting because there's community mailboxes and there's, you know, something like parkish, you know, where community pooping areas for pets and geese, right? Nice. So very sorry that I disappeared for a little bit.
That's fine.
I just threatened them with 30 words in 6 minutes.
Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna pop in here though, and I think co-host you, Sarah, just in case this happens.
What?
All right, if you could accept that, that'd be amazing. Okay, so we have so many people left, right?
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah,
But
okay,
this
then.
one's a little embarrassing because I took you at your word when you said, what do you do the most? So this is the journey I do the most.
Okay.
Okay. Pain. I can make it. Straighten up. Walk. The cold floor was first to hit me, but it wasn't as cold as the pain hurt. I decided in a split second to walk without slippers. Maneuvering around the desk caused me more pain. A bump to that right hip. Damned if that hip wasn't bigger than the other. Ooh, pain in my abdomen. When would I ever learn? The pressure relaxed and my feet continued a forward journey. Why did I keep this door closed? True, it only took 2 seconds to open it, but that was 2 seconds I didn't have. The weak corrugated cardboard-like door swung open faster than anticipated, and the bang as it hit the wall shook me. No time to apologize. And that's as much as I got. Can anybody guess where I'm going?
I think the bathroom.
Bathroom?
Yes, it's from my desk to the bathroom, and I always wait till the last second because I'm working on something.
Familiar to anybody?
All right.
Good news though, I have nowhere to hit my hips that are a size that I never expect. Menopause changed them so much. All right, what stood out with Tammy's piece?
I have 3 notes. One, at the beginning where it whispers to hit you, the floor. Did I get that right?
Yes, that the cold floor was first to hit me.
Yeah, okay. I like that. And then you made pain funny. And you had an incredible narrative voice throughout.
Nice. What else?
I just felt your pain. I mean, it just, and I gotta go pee now, but you know,
You're welcome to disappear for a moment.
but no,
Yeah,
I
please
just, like,
mute.
I'm trying to think what I was reading last night where they just, was it a cartoon or something that I saw that, you know, when you're lying in bed and you're all snuggled up, but you've still got a full bladder and you're trying to decide what's the worst evil, getting out of bed to deal with it or, you know, suffering.
Yep.
You know, it was really cool. I like it. But I did feel your pain in every step. You know, it was painful.
Well, for this group, it was definitely a relatable topic.
It's a bunch of girls.
A bunch of girls who experience a lot of pain too, right? Yeah. That was nice, Tammy. I'm gonna keep pushing this because I realize it's like almost 10 and we have another prompt. So I try to do it in an hour and a half if I can. Angela or Suzanne?
I can go real quick.
Okay.
The music still pulsed throughout my body, my heart still beating with it as I let the door slam shut behind me. Scattered gravel crunched beneath my feet as I stepped away from the warmth, the fun, the laughter. The cold caressed my arms even as I tried to violently pull away from it. 3 streetlights were out. Only the light behind me guided me on my mission. Blaring alarms in the distance played my nerves like a violin, seeming to only get louder and longer by the minute. Boarded up windows littered with false promises lined my path. The only thing constant as the sidewalk dipped. People on the other side of the street spoke as if they had the most important things to say in the world. They ignored me as they huddled around a porch light.
Interesting. Okay, everyone.
And then
That's all.
I like the nerves like a violin because like if it's a very unwelled not played well, it can fray your nerves.
Yeah, violin strings are tight, but there's also a sound associated with poorly played violins, right? What else?
I like the porch light. It always just reminds me of someone waiting for me. If you have a porch light on, okay, somebody's thinking of you. That's what I got out of that.
Yet awesomely, those people were like huddled and talking, and she was like, you know, not invited into that space. So she, yeah, it's warm for those people, but this person is having, you know, false
Yeah.
promises, cold arms.
Yeah, and everything was boarded up. And then the people were talking like they had the most important things to say in the world. You could sense that this character didn't feel listened to or appreciated or valued. It was a little
Yeah.
sad of a piece, I think, at least
Yeah.
from what I heard.
Absolutely. That setting tells us something dark is going on, and there's loud people, and she's isolated, or they are isolated. I don't know the gender of the character, but yeah. There's a
Yeah, she
lot.
was looking in on the outside.
Yeah. Nice, Suzanne. I think you accomplished a lot with that dark and cold piece.
Thank you. I was just thinking like walking out from a bar to your car.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that other piece, you got to have that little creepy thing happening down your spine where you wonder if somebody's following you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely. Nice. Angela, do you want to share what you wrote?
Okay, just it's
Okay.
broken up a little bit, so
No worries.
she walked around the neighborhood lake, feeling the heat breeze against her sweaty skin, smelling the sweet smell of roses. The darkness surrounds Gabriella as the heat raises with each step. Fear fills her chest as the darkness begins to surround her. The false hope of roses that she smelt did give her the safety. The sound of roaring engine above her, of her head, brings Gabriella to a halt. Sweat begins to crawl down her back from the heat surrounding the desolate area. Slowly looking up, her heart stops as the shiny metal shows the hard surface, the crisscross designs begin to illuminate as the bright light surrounds her body. Well, I have a walking trail in my neighborhood that has a lake, and the sun hits it, the playground, and always blinds me. So I was thinking of that when I wrote this.
Oh, so it was not an alien abduction.
No,
That's exactly what I thought. I thought, oh my gosh, she's getting abducted by aliens.
I wanted it to sound like that to bring off the emphasis of the playground, the lights.
Nice. Well, you achieved your goal. What else stood out to people?
It made me think of the beginning of, I think it's the first Terminator movie, like the originals, not the new ones, where there's like all that death and desolation at the playground because the world's been blown up. But then there was, I think you said something about the smell of roses or something. It's like this image of hope
Yes.
in the middle of all the desolation.
Yes, there's houses all around the trail, and most of them have rose bushes that I get to smell. It's a 2-mile trail that I walk. And I like to go at a time where nobody's out there. So it's just me and the water and the roses.
Nice.
You could really do a lot with the rose. Like if you made this into a bigger piece and have the roses as a thematic thing going on through the whole
Right.
Yeah.
story.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah,
Especially
I also
because-
latched on to the roses. So
Yeah. And she emphasized that they made the character feel safe, and yet it was also kind of a lie, which, you know, then she gets abducted in my mind.
The false hope of roses.
yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and the one other thing, I really like the verb crawls. So the second time you talked about sweat and the sweat crawled down her back, that gave it another creepy quality. That choice of a word fit in with the idea that something bad was going to happen. So it felt foreshadowing to me anyway. Cool. Well, okay. So it's 10:04 and we got to get moving. The next piece that I have for you is Girl Thing, and this thing is pretty amazing. Does anybody want to read it? Or I will read it if nobody wants to, because we're in a hurry.
Good. Go for it.
Did you say go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Girl Thing by Anna Vodicka. Because I needed the cash, because it seemed like the girl thing to do, I took a certification course in babysitting to learn the essentials of diaper changing, getting a baby to take the Gerbers off the spoon, and of infant CPR, which we practiced on naked rubbery dolls. But they didn't teach us what to do when the job is done. When the littlest one, who screamed all night, is finally asleep in the crib and the baby's father drives you home, slurry at the wheel, and he slides a roving hand across the divide and onto the space that used to be known seconds ago as your innocuous upper thigh. You're growing up so fast, he says, and sitting in the car, now a vehicle for ugly things, like upper thighs, glassy eyes, and the rot breath of intoxication. You think about how bullshit this all is, that you're growing up at the same rate as every other goddamn girl in that babysitting class who paid $25 to have adults critique her in the art of child rearing, a certified screw. But you can't do anything because you've already taken your money and this man is at the wheel and your body is changing fast. So fast you don't know anymore if you are a girl and if that noun means you are a person, place, and thing. Thoughts?
Ouch. My heart's breaking.
Mhm.
Oh, Dr. Max, I really like this one too.
I mean, how many of us have had at least a related experience to this?
Yeah, I get goosebumps when I read it. It's like, oh my gosh.
I mean, back in my day, you didn't have to take CPR or a babysitting class, right? But creepy, slurry guys drug you home most of the time, which is, I mean, because I lived rurally, you know, you weren't close to where you were babysitting. Yeah.
The rabbi, I should say, unfortunately, father of one of the girls I grew up with who I spent my childhood, was arrested and found guilty, et cetera, of child porn. And we all used to sleep over, like that was the family where you all slept over. And after it all came up, like a group of us got together and we were just like, you know, it was just awful.
Yeah. So in telling this story for Anna Vodicka, and remember, if you're writing about authors, you use their last name, and I'm making up how it sounds. I don't know how to pronounce it. Vodicka, maybe, which is so close to vodka, it's cool. She has this sexual terror happening. And I love this single short sentence that comes after talking about having to pay $25 for this class. She says, a certified screw. And how does that sentence do double duty for her?
Well, she's certified to babysit, but she's also screwed because this guy might screw her.
Right. Right. So now she is a certified screw for the guy, and she was screwed and getting certified. Yeah. And so that kind of cleverness always goes a long way towards, you know, unpacking a story for a reader. When you read that sentence, you're like, I knew what it was about, but now I really know what it's about. So what kind of sensory details do we note in here?
I found the phrase rot breath of intoxication kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't smell like intoxication or rot. It was the literal metaphor, rot breath of intoxication. Right? It's probably my favorite thing in here. What sensory detail of touch happens without saying that it's touch?
Well, this might not be the one you're looking for, but the one that got me was CPR, which we practiced on naked rubbery dolls. I mean, I've had CPR classes, so that immediately brought back that feeling, that rubbery doll thing.
Nice. Yeah. And that wasn't the one I was thinking of, but that's an excellent one.
The Gerber's off the spoon.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I mean, I know what a Gerber baby food is, but
Well, his
Implication.
his roving hand on her upper thigh.
Yeah, on that innocuous upper thigh. That is the one I was thinking of because it's the most dangerous one in there. And all of us, all of the women here in this particular one, men could be listening to the recording, but we're women in presence here. All of us know what that violating hand could feel like, even if it's never happened to us. You know, imagine being in a pair of shorts or in a short skirt or something that allows your thigh to be bare enough for somebody to touch it. And upper thigh is meaningful, right? We know where the upper thigh is. So that touch, without her saying, you know, what it felt like on her skin, all of us are imagining, right? And that's a great
And-
way to bring in touch.
The upper thigh had been innocuous, as had the video or the vehicle.
Yes, nice. But now it's a vehicle for ugly things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
upper thighs, glassy eyes, and the rot breath of intoxication. And you see there where she uses a little bit of rhyme in that stood apart, like M-dashed, you know, upper thighs, glassy eyes. And that gives you that slide. So there's a rhythm happening in that sentence, the upper thighs, glassy eyes. And then she uses these fricatives that stop you short and say, and the rot breath of intoxication, right? And so you get stopped up short and slowed down to pay attention to what's happening to her. It's, you know, awful. It's really awful.
Yeah.
And then I love the title is telling us how to read this. So keep in mind titles when you're writing. And you can always throw draft titles on and they can change all the way through the course. It's just something to think about. Girl/thing, because what is she? And for this, you know, intoxicated guy, what is she? Is she a girl? Is she a thing?
She's a
Depends on
thing.
who you're asking.
Right.
I think for when she was in the house babysitting, she was a girl, but the minute she got into the car, she turned into a thing.
Yeah, she gets objectified as something that he wants to pay sexual attention to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an impressive piece. And I bring in Flash most of the time when we're doing this because we don't have much time. But I just want you to admire what happens in this kind of compression. So for people in 529, please don't ever think that that word count's hurting you, because the less you write when you want to say the same things, the better your writing is going to be. And I you know, I have had people really argue with me on that, and that's fine. But my experience, many years of it, is that if you get forced to say what you want to say in fewer words, you end up getting rid of all the detritus. And that's also true for 532 in that you have some pretty short word counts in this class this time. So just keep in mind how much you can do in a short word count. And they're giving you like 1,100 to 1,600 words, I think, whatever that percentage of over they say you can do, or under. You know, this is probably, I would say, 350 words looking at the length of it on the page. So there's a lot you can do, right? All right, so we're going to part 2, what you did in part 1. So you went on that journey. Then write why you or your fictional character chose this journey. Now for Tammy, you're going to have some fun with going to the bathroom. And begin your reasons. Like, you know, for me, it would be like, ever since the great change, I mean, I have to go all the time. I used to go like twice a day, you know? So mine would be, you know, because of menopause would be the beginning of mine. But it's basically write a series of reasons and begin each one with because, but don't mention where the journey itself is in physicality. And then reflect, you know, figuratively, transcendently, however you can do it. So surround the physicality that you have in mind from the first one with your own individual associations and identity. And what we're doing here is, while I wanted to emphasize sensory writing, the reason I wanted to bring you into part 2 is that sensory writing does need to connect to larger ideas, to themes, to what the story's about. And by writing this, you can think more about what the story's about. And then sometimes some of this might show up, like if you're combining it, or it allows you, if you do this exercise part 2 in your own writing, and you do the because, you may never put any of these into the story you're writing, but it allows you to fix up your sensory details to mean these things. So this is a nice exercise just to say, well, what am I saying? What is this about? All right. Good luck, everybody. On your marks, it's set, right. About a minute left. I think I muted myself, or did I tell you to come back?
You were muted.
Oh God, please wrap up. I said it like 20 seconds ago and nobody responded, and I said, huh. But I looked up and saw my red microphone. This technique can be so great to even do like a list for a flash fiction or a poem or something, because of that repetitive because it can be really fun. So I'd love to hear what you all got. We're a little short on time, so we'll mostly read and we won't comment too much. Who'd like to go first?
I can.
Okay.
I did not think it was going to go this way, but
Okay.
because when they asked, have you ever smelled a dead body? I said, what the fuck? And we moved on because I didn't say anything for 2 hours and they didn't seem to notice or care. Because when I sat away, giving them space at the table, they found out relaxing. Because I walked out the door, I was able to clear my head, because who would even ask that? Because how would they even know? Because there wasn't any proof. I made sure of it. Because I would always protect them, protect me. Because do they know what dust smells like? How the sweet rotting burns your nose, tickles your sinuses? Because I do know what a dead body smells like.
Ew.
I think you should polish that up and try sending it out. That was great. Find the flash places. Any other thoughts? Sorry, I was just so excited.
It was good. It was yucky, but it was good. I want to know why you know what a dead body smells like.
It's fiction. It is fiction.
Oh yeah, it's fiction.
But there was
But
a
if-
cool narrative arc. Like you had a complete narrative arc in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a little twist at the end, like the 5 S's, you had it. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Glad you win. What did everybody else get?
I need to see it.
You need to see.
I can type it up and send it to you.
That would be awesome. Because there's so much in there that I want to like dive into, and we don't have time for you to read it over again. So I just gotta.
Yeah, I
All
think I
right.
realized I like writing horror.
You guys can always share this stuff in the Slack group. You can type it up and see what people say. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go next. I'm very short. Sorry, I had an emergency. I had to go. I thought we were supposed to choose the same character from our previous blurb.
Yes,
So-
which Suzanne did.
I did, yeah.
Oh, the dead body was at the bar? Oh God, now I need to know more.
It was the conversation at the bar.
Oh, okay. We left because it was time. Because we always leave at 9 a.m. once I've caffeinated enough and dressed and showered and gone myself. We reach the spot because she's particular and needs her special place where she can watch the lake water as she refills the earth, like the running of a faucet when you toilet train toddlers. Because she's old and picky and rescued and loved and gets all she wants, like the mom who pulled her child back when she worried because he wanted to watch and run and play with no-nos, because we love.
Nice. Really nice.
It's a really good list. I mean, you could make that into a list poem really easily.
I agree. Yeah.
There's reasons I take my dog to poop at the same place.
Yes, but I mean, you wouldn't even have to title it that, because I think almost any reader could recognize that as long as it was clear it was a dog. Yeah. Nice.
I like the output refilling the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And the need for the view.
She does.
Yeah. And the detail about the toddler running the water tied really nicely when you brought the toddler and the dog together in the previous.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Sorry to rush us.
I'll go, but it's very short and it's not as fluent as all of yours.
No excuses. Just tell us what you got.
Because I always wait till the last minute. The pain is always on the edge of unbearable. Because I want to show my small environment against my larger body. Because I want to show the inexpensive quality of the house products. Because I want to show how wonderful release from pain can be.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you were going to try to turn that into something more, you would just take away what it is about writing and just say, because my body isn't fitting in the small space, because the house has, you know, cheap building materials or whatever.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to put the show in there. Any other thoughts?
I really like how it was like, yeah, you're pushing yourself to the point of pain when you have to go, but like having that be like, no, this is like my one sense of control, that I can control it, and then I get this reward after. I really like how those two things tied in together.
Nice. Especially because the other things feel like they are constrictions that she doesn't like.
Mhm.
And so that control, very nice. Yeah. Great. Who's next?
I can go next.
Or go ahead.
Because I want to be alone with my thoughts, my feelings. The pain of my muscles reminded me I am alive. Because my grandfather, who I miss every day, I can connect with as the roses come into focus. Because the wonderful feel of the heat brushing against my skin reminds me I can breathe with every breath intake.
Nice. The grandfather is so unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to connect what she was feeling while I was writing. And of course, I put some of my reality into her.
Yeah.
And I was very close with my grandfather, and he always made the statement of everything will be okay, put it all in the wash and it'll smell like roses.
Oh.
So every time I smell a rose, it reminds me of my grandfather.
Oh, I can't wait for you to put that line in your writing. It's going to be great. Nice. Anybody else have thoughts?
I really liked it, especially with like the muscles burning and then like the physical turmoil, but also the emotional and mental turmoil. I really liked how the two balance each other.
Nice. I'll add from somebody who lives in the Northwest that the wonderful feeling of heat probably has never come out of my mouth.
Well, I'm asthmatic. So when we moved to Houston, which that's where I'm at, I was just taking little small breaths wherever I lived. And when I got here, it was my first deep breath because it's so humid here. I could actually take a deep breath, and I can actually exercise now because my lungs have opened up.
So I have asthma, and the heat and the humidity is like choking for me. It's the opposite.
It's
My
like
daughter
what?
does the same thing.
What'd you say, Sarah?
It does what for you? Humidity?
Makes me choke. Like it feels like I'm suffocating.
Yeah, me too, recently.
Yeah. It makes my asthma much worse.
It just makes my hair like go vroom. Right?
I have no hair.
So it's I go down to Florida every so often and it's just like, there's not enough goop I can put on it to make it manageable.
Right. Okay, Sarah, you're our last one and you have a helper.
Okay, you're too distracted.
Definition of helper is questionable.
Because absolute silence never exists, laying down flat on her back, Tori's sight is blinded by the sun, but the grass she's on is the amphitheater for crickets. Because instead of stupid customers yelling at her, she picks out the tick, 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 the woodpecker puncturing that oak nearby, searching for nutrients to feed its family. Because her boss expects her to know his mind without or despite his words, she tips her sunglasses down her nose so the almost sizzling of her fair skin under a sun, regardless of what she knows the burn, but also aware that no SPF shields her skin from blistering, nor does it shield her from harsh words trying to permeate past the surface.
Wow.
I have no idea if I followed the prompt. I just had to close it.
Wow, that was great. The contrast between the SPF shielding and not shielding. That was really good. Especially since I think people put so much faith into slathering suntan lotion on and they don't realize it comes off after an hour and you've got to keep on. And I kind of felt like the same sort of thing, like she put it on, but it didn't work, but she got to put it on, like a rinse, lather, repeat thing.
Especially as the metaphor or the allusion to no protection from all the things that are awful about work. Like there isn't a such thing as SPF to block her from her boss. Nice. What else? Anything?
I also really like, I think, okay, the onomatopoeia, I think, when you did the tick, tick, ticks, that's onomatopoeia, right? Yeah, I really like that. I was like, ooh. Especially how it transitioned to like the next thing about the boss. I thought that was just so good.
Yeah, and I would like to bring up, that's such a great way to bring in onomatopoeia because, ring, ring, she went to answer the phone is not an effective way to use it, but she hears the tick, tick, tick. You know what I mean? So you bring it in, but it's not like this independent, awkward tick, tick, tick. She heard the woodpecker. You know what I mean? It's a part of the narrative instead of a separate sound that the character responds to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So really nicely done. Do it like that, people, if you're going to use onomatopoeia. This was such an amazing session, everybody. What a good one. I love it when we have good ones, which actually I say this every time because they always are. I'm so glad you all could make it. And like if you can't make it, we do record them because this is, yes, still recording. So, we'll plan on doing this in, let's hope 2 more weeks. Yeah, that looks like May 6th would be the next time I'm planning to hold one. So if you can make it, wonderful. If you can't, you'll see when I send out and put in Slack the link to the recording. It's going to take a little longer today. I have a bunch of like neighbor obligations, but it'll show up today or tomorrow or Monday.
Can I ask another technical question?
Sure, I'm gonna stop the recording really quick.